Hey everyone, it is Monday, February 9th. This is another Tech Check live stream. I'm Deirdre Bosa. Thank you so much for those patiently waiting and sending in your questions and comments as we get started. Now, we continue to cover this major shift in AI over the last few weeks, from chatbots to agents that actually do things like build apps and create software. You know, Jasmine and I have been doing it as well. And every week we get more evidence that this is real and accelerating. Databricks just gave us one of the clearest data points yet. 80% of databases on their platform are now being built by AI agents, not people. And it's not just tech companies, it's non-tech like Mercedes, AT&T, MasterCard. More enterprise software is being created in-house than ever before, and AI is doing the building. So Ali Ghodsi, he's the CEO of Databricks, and he has a front row seat to all of this coding wars model race, what 20,000 companies, its customers, are actually doing with AI right now. Let's get into it. Ali, we just jumped off TV. You can do it all. Thank you for jumping right on the live stream. You left me in suspense on TV. You basically said that you're preparing. You raised all this money because you're worried about another 2022 situation in tech. And by the way, that is the year that the public tech trade just got wiped out. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, it's just, things just seem to have just been accelerating. On the AI side, it was all these deals, that were like, kind of circular in nature. People were very worried about it. So when we started our fundraise, that was the number one question we were getting. What's going on with AI? It's like, do you think these deals are okay? So we were getting a lot of questions about that, and it had nothing to do with us. And then towards this end, people started waking up to like, oh, wait a minute. If agents is the new interface, then the system of record maybe is no longer really needed. Or is it needed? Or, are they going to switch to something else? Will there be a new system of record? What's going to happen to those companies? And then started focusing on, what's the efficiency of those SaaS companies? So it's just, when you raise so much capital, like $7 billion that we just did now, you get to hear what these top investors in the world sort of really behind closed doors are worried about. And it's just, there was too many questions about these kind of things that got us worried. So we said, hey, we better get really well capitalized now, just in case. And kudos to my board also, which also pushed us like, hey, we got to capitalize now because who knows what's going to happen. So that was it. I'm not saying definitely it's going to happen, but there were kind of a little bit 2000 vibes around it. So we just wanted to, be safe.
Right. And it felt like that started sort of late last year, right? All of these bubble questions were coming to the surface. And you, Ali, the reason I like talking to you so much is you've always been sort of like clear-eyed. It's never all good, never all bad either. But what are you seeing? Because you have like a front row seat. You see everything that's happening with your customers. You have such a good view of AI as a whole. Are you becoming more concerned? You mentioned the circular funding, valuations. How do you feel in this moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what happened is that we had these amazing consumer breakthroughs with ChatGPT, and then we saw coding happen, but then we didn't see much else happening for a while. But then everything kept getting bigger and more and more headlines. So that was the worry. What I'm seeing right now is that we're finally starting to see that the knowledge worker is starting to use these things. As I said, we launched this Genie product that wasn't even our main focus. Which is a way in which you just speak to your data, asking questions in English, and it now has data intelligence. It knows the numbers. I actually myself had this quarter ended, our fiscal year ended last week, and we saw a big spike in usage on Thursday, and I couldn't figure out why it is. Is it normal? Is it like something wrong with the data? Normally, I would have asked that question. It would have taken days for the finance team to get back to me, and I basically got back. Genie gave me back a report that had histograms on the data. It had like perfect, visualizations on everything. And I could just continue asking further and further questions. And I was just comparing just a year ago, this would have been, a huge amount of work and would take a long time. And I was just getting it at my fingertips. So I do think that we're going to start seeing this year more and more of these use cases where actually the knowledge worker is becoming more effective with agents.
Right, that seems to coincide with this like explosion in token usage as well. Even for like non-technical people like myself and producer Jasmine, we've been spinning up apps and building software and doing really cool things. Then what is Wall Street missing, right? Because it feels like, yes, these tools are becoming available to non-technical people, to the knowledge worker, and the hyperscalers and big tech are building for even more capable, more powerful models. Yet you're preparing and your investors are preparing for a world in which the tech trade gets wiped out again. How do I reconcile those two things?
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is, what has happened is that so we had this system of records. The system of records had, a couple of really big moats protecting them. One was the user interface. So millions of people around the planet were trained on that user interface. So therefore, you couldn't change system of record because you would have to train, hundreds of millions of people. That's now being completely challenged by this English or natural language interface. And then the other thing you had is that the database that it's very hard to change databases. The system of record database is very hard to change. Both of those are being challenged on the database layer. These kind of lake bases that we've announced, which really you mentioned in the beginning, databases that cater to agents. So they're really awesome, not for humans necessarily, but they're really awesome for agents. So you're going to see that. That's a threat coming. And then the user interface, people will just use these agents. So I think the market is just reacting to these two major moats for system of records are sort of being lessened and they're going to evaporate. But that doesn't mean, okay, so that means all system of records are gone. First of all, you need a different system of record or some replacement to move it to. And secondly, the existing system of records are not just going to sit there and watch that happen. So I think it's going to be somewhat volatile. Some will adapt and some will innovate and do it really, really well. In fact, if you think about it, if you have a lot of revenue for your system of record and you have all these customers and the AI models are super cheap, you can just use them. There's nothing that really stopping you from doing any innovation that anyone else would do to disrupt you. The question is just, will they do that, or will innovators' dilemma get in the way? Which is, I have to protect my existing revenue base and my seat-based pricing where I have humans using this and I'm charging based on that, not on one agent, instead of, let's say, 10,000 humans.
But if they don't do it, someone is now has the tools to be able to do it for them, which is, I guess, what the market's reacting to is just a lot of this uncertainty. Okay, so there's like replacing software as a whole, and it's mixed, right? You're saying that there's sort of companies, systems of record, cybersecurity, for example, that can't be that easily replaced. But I thought this was really interesting from KPMG over the last week. They pressured its own auditor to lower fees because AI is making that work cheaper. So are you seeing that across your customers, companies using AI, not just to build, we know that's happening, but using AI to squeeze costs out of their vendors? Should they be doing that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's one of the most common use cases. You can, a lot of the work that was done before, you can now lower the cost of it. Royal Bank of Canada, basically similar. Like you had these analysts, equity research analysts, that would write these reports. Earnings calls came out. How's this company doing? That now you can with AI do all of that research in a heartbeat. In fact, to be specific, in less than 15 minutes, they can get the earnings call from all the competitors, compare it, contrast with the rest of the market, get all of that done with an agent. And then the equity analyst can, put the finalizing touches and really what is the actual recommendation and the really deep insights that they might have. But, of course, that product, those kind of products, the TCO and the cost of goods sold is going to change for a lot of these businesses. So people are putting pressure. Why should I pay this much when I can actually lower the cost of this portion of it? Right. So that's happening as well. So the question is, what exactly will come out of it? I think just last 10, 15, 20 years, people were just thinking of SaaS as safe haven. And you could just place the money there and it's an annuity, it just keeps paying every year. The metrics are very clear, churn and so on. You can just calculate everything. So it's like, you could be pretty lazy. Now it's like, no, you have to think hard. Which one is actually going to be able to innovate and which one is not? Because, some of these SaaS companies are going to be wiped out because they're going to be lazy. They're going to focus on short-term revenue and they're going to protect their existing revenue, maybe raise the price, not let people access their data, not innovate just to get short-term benefits. And then in a year or two, those businesses will go out of business. But some of them will also do the right thing and they'll survive and they'll do great and they'll leverage AI the right way.
Right, but what you're talking about is a whole re-rating of an entire sector, which is, I guess, what we're watching. Okay, Ali, I want to get to some of the fun stuff as well. Did you watch the Super Bowl? Did you watch the commercials?
Yes, I was there actually, yeah.
Okay, you were there. Who are you cheering for?
Yes. Seahawks, but so
Good.
had to leave early. Yeah.
Okay, we're a Seahawks household, and we can forgive you for leaving early because it was, not
Yeah.
the most interesting game in the world. Okay, so I'm
Yes.
sure you saw the commercials either way. Who won, in your
Yeah.
view, in terms of AI commercials?
Well, I mean, look, there were different varying of how interesting they are. There's many different ways to analyze those commercials.
No, come
Well,
on,
number
you can
one, it
tell
seems
us
like,
one. Which one? You don't need to hedge.
well, look at, well, okay, here's an interesting perspective that I will provide as a CEO that, maybe a lot of people will not think from this perspective. How many of the ads are just, chest thumping and kind of boasting, and how many actually will have real ROIs for those companies? If you look at it from that lens, you might actually end up with a different set of ads that
Okay,
you
so
like
who won
and ads that you don't like.
with who won
Um,
in
uh,
those terms?
I don't know.
Google?
I like the
I mean, they
positive
showed how
ones,
you
right?
actually use it. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the positive ones are the important ones where you can actually make a change in your life and you can do, great things with AI. Those are the ones that I like. I think,
Okay. Fair.
providing some positivity. There's so many kids coming out of school. What's in it for them, what's going to happen with their future, and so on. I think that those that can kind of paint a future that's compelling for the next generations. Those are the ones that I'm kind of that
Fair
I think
enough.
I would prefer.
I won't press you further. I think we can guess which were the positive and which were not so positive. Just this last thought from Jasmine. She was talking about the 2022 Super Bowl, known as the crypto bull because of all the crypto ads. And that preceded the popping of the crypto bubble. Given what we started talking about, do you worry about that for AI? The idea that it has gone so mainstream, the Super Bowl was filled with these ads, that maybe it can't live up to all the hype?
No, I don't think that the Super Bowl is going to be a predictor of how this whole thing pans out. I do think that, AI is going to be completely game changing for the planet and for, all of our futures. There's no doubt about that. The question is just exactly who and who are the winners and who are the beneficiaries and who are maybe the losers. And yes, it's going to create volatility. There's also so much investment going on the hardware side of it, right? Data centers, energy, will we need that much of it? Are we overbuilding? Are we not overbuilding? So I just think that there's going to be, it's just unprecedented how much investment is going into the space. I mean, as I said, right, last year, GDP growth would have been less than 1% if you hadn't counted for all the AI. So, there's just so much of the capital is going towards this. So what's going to happen? And then you have these startups that, seem promising, but with zero revenue have billions of dollars. Some of them, tens of billions of dollars of valuations. Those are kind of insane amounts of money. So I think that you just have to be very careful, and broad brush is going to be difficult here. So no, I don't think that the Super Bowl, just because we had AI ads, that's the end is near.
Fair enough. So the AI ads are not a top. Okay, so you brought up companies, startups that aren't even creating any revenue. You guys, I mean, revenue run rate up 65% year over year. This is a question from our YouTube audience. Why do you need to raise funding and debt now, especially since you're free cash flow positive?
Yeah, we just wanted to, this is a tail risk. I wouldn't say this is not a prediction of what's going to happen. But let's say if a year 2000 kind of event happens, like the IT bubble bursting, that took 3-4 years. So you'd like to have enough capital to be really on the safe side, no matter what happens, right? Anything can happen to your revenue and all kinds of things in those scenarios. We just wanted to be protected for that scenario so that we could continue building, because we're so bullish on AI and the future of it. We just want to be continuing to focus on that instead of having to suddenly, change everything or do layoffs as 2022 required everyone to do. And it's very hard to focus on the future if all you're doing is downsizing and, trying to lose, costs.
Right.
So that's really what was behind it.
The private markets are very accessible to you guys and a few others right now. Last few sets of questions, Ali, I like to ask are getting harder.
I mean, I would say that there's just so much. Well, you have the LLM providers that are looking for huge amounts of capital, right? We're talking about $50-100 billion. So at some point, it seems the private coffins are also getting kind of depleted. In this particular round, that's why when we started, we said, hey, we're going to raise 3 to 5, because we weren't even sure we were going to be able to get to 5. We ended up getting 7 billion of investments, and we actually sort of blew through our cap of 5 billion of primary capital that we wanted. But there's definitely, when you have private companies that are looking for 50 billion, 100 billion, there's not a lot of folks that just have 50, $100 billion sitting around.
Yeah, we may be seeing some of the cracks in that with some other big AI names. Ali, I always like to ask our live stream guests, what is your number one model right now? You don't need to say for this or that. Like, what is sort of number one top of your personal leaderboard?
Well, I mean, on my laptop, I use Cloud Code for a lot of things, to do things, to get work done. I do actually like ChatGPT projects. I've sort of lined up a lot of my documents and things there, so I can use it for that. And then I think Gemini has made it's fast, it's really, really smart. So I don't actually just use one model. I actually do think the future is multi-AI. And these things move so fast that who knows which one is the winner. I mean, maybe it's going to be Grok, maybe it's going to be this or that. So I do think that you want to kind of have a setup where you're not just dependent on one of them. And I think that's also what you're seeing with enterprises. Most of the enterprises are saying, because we used to have this era where people said we have to be multi-cloud, not just double down on one cloud. For instance, all financial institutions in the United States, they're basically on all three clouds just to be safe. Mm-hmm. I think with AI, it's even more so because it's easy to switch between them. They're just speaking English anyway. So this is a requirement now that, most of these enterprises we work with want to be multi-AI. So I try to reflect the same thing. I don't just I only use one AI and I have no idea about the others.
Right. What about the Chinese models? You and I have talked a lot about this in the past, and I don't even need to say Chinese models, maybe just open source. What are you seeing with the adoption? And as we get closer to the Lunar New Year, we're expecting a ton of new model releases. Do you think that will, switch up the leaderboard once again?
Well, first of all, I think it's providing cost pressure on American models and on American price points and models like Kimi, for coding. And I think we'll probably see a DeepSeek come here soon as well. So these models, if nothing, they're providing intense cost pressure. So our largest customers that have huge amounts of AI usage offload some of that and use us to serve the Chinese models. So that's one thing. And then secondly, they're not far behind. The thing that's really, really shocking is that no matter what happens in the US, the Chinese models are just slightly behind. And they're basically open, so you can just use them very, very, very cheaply. So I think that's going to continue to be a force that makes it hard for people to get huge margins in this space. And they continue doing research that's really, really interesting. So I think that's going to continue this year. That's not going to change.
Right. Will be an interesting year to see what happens with open source models. Ali, thank you so much for taking the time, both on TV and the live stream. It was great to get more of your thoughts. Hope you'll come back again soon. Thank you to Sammy in the control room, producer extraordinaire Jasmine, Robert and Evan on the tech. This is another Tech Check live stream. We'll be back again soon for sure. Thanks again, Ali.